All right, we're going to spend the next couple of days talking about the most reactive of the amino acids, the hardening amino acids, and in a sense the most dangerous and problematic of the amino acids, and that's cysteine. Cysteine has a structural component to it. It gives the body a certain hardness, as we've said. It has an ability to harden tissues, harden connective tissue, harden collagen, and this makes it an important amino acid for healthy skin and healthy nails and healthy hair, especially hair and hair care. Hair care companies oftentimes exploit the cysteine component of the protein keratin. If you do Google search for keratin in shampoo, you're going to get over 5 million hits. And if you just take a little walk through your shampoo section at Walmart or Kmart or your favorite grocery store, you'll find dozens of shampoos that scream keratin right on their labels. Contains keratin, made with keratin. There's shampoos and brand names with keratin in their names. Keranique and Keralique and Suave with keratin, and keratin oils and keratin conditioners. Do these keratin products work in your hair? Probably not. Keratin's important stuff, but keratin is a very stable protein, and hair is dead anyway, and hair and keratin aren't necessarily going to combine with each other, and you're not really going to get much benefit for your hair just by applying a keratin shampoo or a keratin conditioner. However, in the salon world, hairstylists can make use of cysteine and keratin in a product they call the Brazilian Blowout. The Brazilian Blowout was all the rage maybe 3 or 4 years ago. It's still pretty popular, although now it turns out, there's high levels of formaldehyde in the Brazilian Blowout products. So there's newer Brazilian type blowout products that don't have the same issues. I'll tell you about the formaldehyde problem here in a moment. In any case, the Brazilian Blowout is basically a hair straightening treatment. Folks in Brazil have frizzy hair, and so hair scientists in Brazil came out with this product that thins out frizzy hair. It seems like if you have curly hair, you want it straight. If you have straight hair, you want it curly. In any case, Brazilian hair tends to be curly and frizzy, and the Brazilian Blowout product was created to turn this frizzy hair into a smooth, straight hair that can last for weeks. Previously, hair relaxer products and straighteners simply use heat and very harsh chemicals like lye and potassium hydroxide, which were alkalinizing agents that kind of destroyed the hair, really. But by using cysteine in this Brazilian Blowout product, sometimes it's in the form of keratin, Brazilian Blowout and similar products managed to avoid the use of lye and potassium hydroxide and still got some pretty good hair straightening results. However, as it turns out, it's come to the attention of the Food and Drug Administration here in this country and OSHA and other researchers that the Brazilian Blowout product actually got their fantastic results, and they did get some pretty darn good results with this Brazilian Blowout product. You could straighten your hair for up to 6 weeks with this product, but as it turns out, some of these fantastic results weren't the results simply of keratin and weren't the results simply of cysteine, but actually they were the results of the formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is a not very pleasant carcinogenic chemical that is used to preserve dead bodies. And when I was in pharmacy school in biology, we used formaldehyde to preserve frogs and fetal pigs and all the other things that we had to, all the other dead animals that we had to examine in pharmacy school. Formaldehyde is actually a biochemical. It's made in the body, but high levels of formaldehyde are not a good thing. The OSHA study, one particular OSHA study, found that 60 times the amount of allowable formaldehyde was in at least one Brazilian Blowout product. And the average Brazilian Blowout product contained 12% formaldehyde. That's a lot of formaldehyde. In any case, whether or not there's formaldehyde in these kinds of products, and the companies that sell these products deny the formaldehyde accusations, in any case, hair straightening by its very nature is a very aggressive procedure because hair contains these cysteine bonds. This is what accounts for the hardness of hair. It doesn't seem like your hair is hard, but from a microscopic perspective, if you pull a strand of hair out and look under a microscope, it's a pretty solid piece of tissue. Dead tissue, but solid piece of tissue, something like your fingernails. And what makes hair strong, and what makes your fingernail strong for that matter, is these cysteine bonds. And cysteine bonds are really, really magnetic. Cysteine is a super, super magnetic amino acid. That's what makes it so reactive, and cysteine bonds are really hard to break, so you have to have some aggressive treatments to break them. The cysteine in hair, nails, and for that matter in skin and hooves in the form of the protein keratin is what accounts for the hardness of the nails and the surface of the skin. You can even get styling products, by the way, hair styling products now with keratin in them. Unfortunately, as I say, keratin hair products are more about marketing and misinformation than actual keratin effects. At best, keratin may soften hair a little bit by acting as a moisturizer. And it's possible, although it's unlikely, that some keratin may get deposited in the hair shaft, allowing for a temporary straightening effect, although that too is unlikely. That's why you got to use the formaldehyde. The formaldehyde actually dissolves the cysteine in the hair and dissolves the cysteine in the Brazilian blowout product and the other amino acids, and you get kind of an amino acid soup via this formaldehyde solvent, and this amino acid soup can penetrate somewhat into the hair, and this is what allows the Brazilian blowout products to straighten the hair. Bottom line is, unless you really, really, really want your hair straightened, personally, I'd be staying away from the Brazilian blowout product or any kind of formaldehyde-containing shampoo products. All right, got more to say about cysteine when we come back from our break. I'm Pharmacist Ben. Got a couple lines open for you at 855-660-4261. You're listening to The Bright Side. We'll be back right after this. All right, so continuing on with cysteine and the Brazilian blowout and hair care. Hair, like the skin, depends on internal nutrients for its health. That means eating cysteine is way more important and a way better option for taking care of your golden locks than applying cysteine or keratin directly to your hair. Once the hair is out of the head, it's like your fingernails. It's basically dead. Not to say that there's nothing that can be done with the hair once it leaves the scalp. Hair is a very flexible material. It's stretchy. It's a kind of stretchy biological fiber, and hair can absorb certain things, at least on the hair surface. This is how hair conditioners work. Hair conditioners actually have a kind of magnetic property, and they can magnetically attach themselves to the surface of your hair shaft, and that's what accounts for that kind of smooth feeling that a hair conditioner will leave on your hair. It doesn't do anything to the hair from a chemical standpoint. It's more of a mechanical kind of thing. It coats the hair shaft magnetically. That's how a hair conditioner works. So you can do certain things to hair. It's not like you can't do anything. But if your hair is brittle or if your hair is dry, you're probably dealing with an internal issue more than you're dealing with a topical hair issue. Now, keratin, the cysteine-rich protein that gives hair and skin and nails its hardness, keratin is really interesting stuff. The skin is composed of layers. You've got a very bottom layer, that's called your dermis, and for the most part, skincare products aren't really going to address this bottom layer. But the top layer, the epidermis, epi means on top of, this epidermis area, it too is composed of layers, and there are things that you can do to the epidermis using topical strategies. Now, in order to get to that area, to get to the areas where you can really do something to the skin, you got to get through the surface, the very tippy top surface of the skin. And this very tippy top surface of the skin, believe it or not, is about as thin as 1/10 of a piece of paper. This very tippy top of the skin is what holds everything in place. It keeps the water in the skin. It keeps water from evaporating out. It keeps water from getting in. It keeps skincare products from getting in. This very, very thin layer, about 1/10 as thin as a piece of paper. It's largely composed of our hard protein keratin. In fact, technically, skin cells are actually called keratinocytes because skin cells make keratin. Cyte, C-Y-T-E, is the Latin designation for cell, and a keratinocyte is quite literally a keratin-making cells. So skin cells are born in the bottom layer of the skin, the bottom layer of the epidermis, and they gradually rise up to the top, becoming more and more filled with keratin. And by the time a skin cell has made it from the bottom layer to the top layer, it's essentially a dead keratin-filled bag. It's a little speck of hard keratin. And you multiply this little speck of hard keratin millions, maybe even billions of times, and you get this surface, this thin, super microscopic thin surface that gives the body, that keeps the body in place, really, that gives the skin a certain hardness and keeps everything intact underneath the skin. These little specks of keratin are what keep our entire body in place. If you didn't have these little specks of keratin, we would dissolve into a puddle, literally. How cool is that? The entire body is held in place by little specks of keratin that form a layer that's about as thin as 1/10 of a piece of paper, 1/10 of a piece of paper. By the way, when the keratinocyte reaches the very top of the skin, it's not called a keratinocyte any longer. It's called a corneocyte, which means a hard cell, and thus the term, the stratum corneum, which means the hard layer. That's the technical name for the tippy top layer of the skin, which is directly exposed to the environment. Stratum corneum is Latin for hard layer, and it gets its name from the fact that it's made up of corneocytes, hard cells. Many skin diseases, acne, eczema, psoriasis, dermatitis. These are all caused by defects in the process of keratinocytes moving upwards and becoming corneocytes. This movement of cells from the lower layer to the upper layer, from the keratinocyte level to the corneocyte level, is really very tightly regulated and very tightly controlled. If there's any defects in the structure of the skin cells, if you have any defects in the outside membrane of a skin cell, or if you have any inflammation locally in the skin, this process, this movement of a keratinocyte, this morphing of a keratinocyte into a corneocyte is not going to occur correctly, and we will end up with skin diseases. This is where the vast majority of skin diseases take place, is in the movement or the morphing of a skin cell into a hard, dead corneocyte. For example, if skin cell chemistry is not proceeding correctly, if there's inflammation in the skin, maybe perhaps from eating the wrong kinds of foods or from nutritional deficiencies, suffocation, local lack of oxygen can do it. If you have any kind of problems in the skin cells are not going to be able to do their work effectively, and all kinds of problems can arise. For example, skin cells can make too much keratin. They'll basically overproduce the stuff. Remember, all disease is cell disease, and this is true about the skin as it's true about any other part of the body. All skin disease is skin cell disease. That means acne is a skin cell disease. That means psoriasis is a skin cell disease. That means eczema, a skin cell disease. Even something like dry skin, which almost everybody has, is a skin cell health issue. One of the biggest problems, one of the most likely things to go wrong when skin cells are disrupted, or the growth and the movement of skin cells are disrupted, is they're going to make too much keratin, and you can end up with these little hard bumps on the skin. That's called keratoses. If you're a skincare therapist, you'll probably call it keratoses pylorus. That's just a fancy way of saying you got too much keratin. Sometimes you'll get little bumps on the face. Women, this especially happens to women as they get older. Those are called milia. And milia and keratoses, these are all medical jargon, medical words for a keratin abnormality. Skin cells are making too much keratin. Keratinocytes, skin cells, are cranking out too much of this protein. This is also a major component of acne. And it's a major problem with the formation of pimples, a major problem with the formation of zits. Remember, all illness is cell illness. All disease is cell disease. So if you got milia, you got keratoses, you got pimples, you got rashes, you have a skin cell issue, a keratinocyte issue. So what do? Well, skin cells, like all cells, are very dependent on fats and fatty vitamins. Skin cells know what to do by talking to each other, and they talk to each other at the level of their membrane. That's that coating, that covering on top of cells. If a skin cell is like an M&M, the membrane is like the candy coating on top of the M&M, and skin cells, like all cells, talk to each other. They communicate to each other at the level of their candy coating, at the level of their membrane. This membrane is largely composed of fats and fatty vitamins, and that's why vitamin A, essential fatty acids, vitamin E, vitamin D are so important for the control and the stabilization of the growth, the movement of skin cells. All right, we'll continue when we come back from our break and take your phone calls as well. I'm Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side. We'll be back after this. Tomorrow we'll continue talking about skin health and nutrients that you can use for skin health, all as it regards the outside coating of a keratinocyte, a skin cell that makes keratin. Especially involves fats and fatty vitamins. If you have tiny bumps on the skin, those little milia, keratoses, acne, eczema, psoriasis, any kind of skincare problem, really, you want to focus on fats and fatty vitamins first and foremost. Of course, that also implies that you want to focus on fat absorption. Fat malabsorption syndrome affects millions of Americans. We'll continue this discussion tomorrow as we continue talking about peptides and skincare and proteins and amino acids on the bright side. 855-660-4261 is our number. Let's go to Minnesota and say hello to Teresa. Welcome to the bright side, Teresa.
Hi, Ben. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay,
what's going on?
I have a couple questions. My first question is it pertains to a man who was previously on. He was addicted to OxyContin.
Okay.
And his doctor had put him on something called, I'm going to spell it because I don't think I can pronounce it, but it's B-U-P-R-E-N-O.
Bupropion. Bupropion? That's Wellbutrin. That's a famous drug they give for weaning people off of drugs, off of addictive substances. You know, it's really silly stuff. I can't say that because if you're addicted to heroin or OxyContin or have an opiate addiction or whatever kind of addiction you have, it can, withdrawing from that kind of stuff, you go through these rebound effects where you end up really anxious and jittery, and that's kind of a rebound effect from coming off of the suppressant kind of drugs, the suppressant effects of these drugs, these opiate types of drugs. So you get this rebound jitteriness and anxiety, and sometimes the Wellbutrin can help. But it really, it's just kind of like replacing one terrible substance with another terrible substance. Right. The latest thing, what people are doing now, what medical professionals, savvy medical professionals anyway, are doing now to get people off of drugs is using amino acids, especially glutamine. All amino acids really, but especially glutamine, glutathione building substances. We've been talking about glutathione now for a while. Cysteine is a component of glutathione. Glutamine is a component of glutathione. Eating more protein, improving protein digestion, using stomach acid supplements, things like bile salts, the ultimate enzymes from Youngevity, apple cider vinegar. That's pretty much the strategy that you want to take if you're coming off of opiate addiction. I would personally be using the amino acid strategy, especially glutamine and glutathione building substances. B vitamins are also very important for all brain health issues, and of course opiates affect the brain, and this is where a lot of the withdrawal symptoms come from. And using the B vitamins can be helpful, as well as essential fatty acids. You have two kinds of nutrients. You have fatty nutrients and you got the watery nutrients. The watery nutrients are the ones that are more quick acting, and those are the B vitamins in your electrolytes. You'll get those in the Beyond Tangy Tangerine. They're very important. Some of the amino acids can be quick acting as well. Taurine is really a really nice amino acid for all kinds of jittery effects, anxiety. It's a stabilizing amino acid. It is used to treat epilepsy and seizure disorders. If you've drank too much coffee, taurine can have a nice relaxing effect on the jitteriness that you get from drinking too much coffee. Same thing with coming down from opiates. The amino acid-like substance, GABA, can be helpful. GABA, that can have a nice calming effect as well. Maybe 100 to 500 milligrams a day of GABA. 5-HTP can be helpful for some folks. Niacin, which is a B vitamin, can be helpful for some folks as they're weaning off of OxyContin and some of these opiate types of drugs. And then lithium, one of my favorite supplements is the element lithium, the mineral lithium, lithium aspartate or lithium orotate. That can also have a nice calming effect. And last but not least, magnesium is also a good supplement to take if you're going through the anxiety and the jitteriness of withdrawal or any kind of anxiety or jitteriness. Magnesium also can help you sleep too. And all of these supplements, GABA, lithium, niacin in its niacinamide form, and lithium and 5-HTP, those can all help you fall asleep if you have problems sleeping at night too. And melatonin, don't forget about melatonin. That can also help you not only with sleep, but it can also help you if you're coming down off of, if you're withdrawing off of opiate drugs and you're experiencing some of that hyperactivity. What else you got for us, Teresa?
Well, so those would be some things that he would take outside of the Healthy Start Pack.
These are in addition to the Healthy Start Pack. Yeah, the Healthy Start Pack's always the basics, Teresa. No matter what you're dealing with, even if you're not dealing with anything, the Healthy Start Pack is the fundamentals. It's got the Mighty 90 in there, and I try to say it every time, and I mean to say it every time, but even if I don't say it, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get benefits from the Mighty 90. All of the other satellite or accessory supplements that we talk about and all the satellite and accessory formulations that Youngevity has, those are in addition to the Mighty 90. The Mighty 90 is the basics. It's It's what everybody needs, and that's what you're going to get in the Healthy Start Pack, especially that Beyond Tangy Tangerine. Just sipping on the Beyond Tangy Tangerine, that alone, if you don't want to do all the other things, just sipping on the Beyond Tangy Tangerine can make a difference. Not specifically for withdrawing, or not specifically for getting off of OxyContin or whatever your addictive substance is, but just for building the body and keeping the body strong, and then the body will do the rest of the work.
Okay.
What else you got for us?
So then my final question then is with regard to a lady who is on 10 to 11 different prescription drugs.
Wow.
She has a stent in her aorta that's blocking an aneurysm that she had, so it doesn't pocket up blood. And
this is a classic example of the medical model just totally taking advantage of a poor, gullible, not very sophisticated or savvy woman. This is not fair. It's so offensive to a healthcare professional who, in good conscience, who really wants to help people. Anybody who's entered into the healthcare profession who really wants to make a difference. When we hear these stories of people who are just drugged out and their bodies are stuck with stents and devices, instead of really addressing the problem, it is so infuriating, and it just makes me so angry. But this is a classic example of what you don't want to do when you interface with the medical model. How the heck can 11 drugs help anybody?
I know.
Doctors out there, how can 11 prescription poisons help any human being? How can you improve somebody's health by putting them on 11 different types of poison on top of inserting a device in their heart? Is that the best you can do, doctors, cardiologists? You should be ashamed of yourself to treat human beings this way. Excuse me. I'm sorry, Teresa.
No, thank you. I appreciate that, actually.
That just
She's
makes
a wonderful
me so angry.
woman, and she's got so many kids and grandkids. She's only 51.
And she's 51. She's a young woman. All right, get her on the Beyond Tangy Tangerine just start. Don't even think about anything else. Get her on the BTT right away. I can't tell you what to do about all the drugs because that's 11 different types of poison, and you can't just stop taking 11 drugs all of a sudden. But she can start to wean herself off of those by getting on, number 1, the Beyond Tangy Tangerine. Number 2, she probably should be on the Osteomag as well. Number 3, get her on the OPC Selenium. Number 4, have her eating a lot less food. The more food you eat, the more burden you put on your circulatory system. A lot less food, and focus on nutrient-dense food, especially proteins. Whey protein, if she can handle it. She may not be able to handle it. Hemp seed protein, if she can't handle it. And then weaning herself off of the insulin-spiking foods as well. Hang tight, Teresa. We'll finish up when we come back from our break. I'm Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side on the Genesis Communication Network. We'll be back right after this. Don't go away. All right, we are back on The Bright Side talking to Teresa, Minnesota. Let's see, what was I saying there, Teresa? Are we good? Anything else you want to ask me?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think I'm just going to just recommend to her the things that you suggested, the tangy tangerine.
Start off slowly. You got a gal who's on 11 medications. She's only 51 years old, so she's been experiencing a lot of health challenges. She's got the stent going on. So you want to start off really slowly. The Beyond Tangy is a great way to start off. Have her sip on it slowly. If you drink it too fast, if she drinks it too fast, she may get some loose stools. You don't want that. So have her sip on it slowly, and then it wouldn't hurt her to get on some magnesium and selenium as well, as I mentioned earlier. And then have her eating less food. Any kind of, she's probably eating the wrong food, so eating less food is going to make a big difference just because she'll be eating less of the wrong food. But even if you eat the right food, that puts a burden on the system. The more you eat, the greater the burden on the system, especially the insulin system, which is involved in cardiovascular health. So just eating less calories is important, and of course the best way to do that is to go nutrient dense. And I told you before we went to break about whey protein and also hemp seed protein if she can't do whey. I don't know if you heard me talking about bone soup. That can also be very helpful for her, where you take a chicken carcass or a whole chicken, you drop it in water and turn it into some soup, and then have her sip on that. Make that her main source of protein, main source of nutrition if you can. Less she eats, the longer she lives. As long as less she eats, the better off she's going to be. As long as she makes sure she's getting her nutrients. That's the important point. Calorie restriction with adequate, or calorie restriction with optimum nutrition. That's the secret to longevity. That's the secret to anti-aging, and that's the secret to getting off of your prescription drugs as well. Making sure you're getting all your nutrients, but not getting a lot of calories. Hope that helps, Teresa.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you. God bless. Have a beautiful day. All right, moving on to Matthew in Texas. What is up, my friend? Welcome to The Bright Side.
Hello, yes. Am I on?
Matthew, what's up, buddy?
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I'm calling from Austin. My mom died of congenital heart failure, and
sorry.
I don't believe in genetic stuff. But I mean, she lived till she was 82, died in her sleep, so she had a long, good life.
Okay.
With some deficiencies because of the long-term problems with the disease. Here recently, over the past 3 months, I'm 58.
Yes, sir.
And in reasonably good health. I've had just severe allergies, but along with the allergies I've had just an unusual amount of fluid that I feel in my stomach, or like when I'm coughing, I'll practically. Yeah,
those are part and parcel with the allergies and the immune system. Something's getting in your body that your body doesn't like. That's basically it. And that can tumble out of control. So you really want to address it as soon as possible. Usually that means food. Now you could be breathing something in, and that's always a possibility with air pollution and with chemtrails and with sick building syndrome, stuff that's coming out of the carpets and the insulation, and our houses are really polluted too. But the first thing you always want to focus on is food. See if you can look for some digestive problems, and then you can link those up to foods and then eliminate those foods. Step number 1. Step number 2 is to start to patch up the digestive system. Using the probiotics. Biolumin Nightly Essence is always the first course of therapy for patching up the digestive tract. The Z Radical can help you as well. That has a nice soothing coating effect on the digestive system. Aloe vera, noni juice, all have soothing effects. Bone soup, the cartilage in chicken bones, is especially soothing for the digestive tract. If you don't want to do the bone soup, or in addition to the bone soup, you can also do glucosamine. The glucogel caps from Longevity can be helpful. Gelatin in general has a nice soothing effect on the digestive tract, as long as you're not a vegetarian. And then glucosamine and essential sugars can also help with digestive health. Laying off of problem foods is always going to be your best bet, though. And focus on something getting into your system, as I say, that shouldn't be getting into your system. Mighty 90 is always important, especially if you have a history of heart disease. Vitamin C, the B complex, and magnesium, as well as selenium, are all very cardiovascular friendly and cardiovascular heart healthy and heart important nutritional supplements. And that's how I'd be focusing. Last but not least, remember the relationship, we've talked about this a lot, between insulin and, I'm sorry, I just let you go there, Matthew. I hope you're listening. There's a very important relationship between insulin and cardiovascular issues. Keeping your insulin stable, down low. That means more protein. That means less sugar. And, of course, oats and grains and pasta and potatoes and fruit juice, they all count as sugar. I'm not saying there's nothing good in grains. I'm not saying there's nothing good in oats. But you want to keep your intake of these substances low, and you want to make sure they're unprocessed. Grains are best done sprouted, by the way. If you really want to get the benefit from grains, use them sprouted. There's not a lot of benefits to using processed grains, processed kinds of flour foods. In fact, there's a lot of negative health implications to using those kinds of foods, and there's not a lot of health benefits, certainly for cardiovascular health. Thanks for your call. I'm sorry I cut you off there. Brian in Texas, what's up, buddy? Welcome to the Bright Side.
Hey, Ben. Thanks for taking my call, man.
Sure. What's going on?
Big fan of the show. First time caller.
Thank you.
You actually got 2 back-to-back calls from Austin, Texas, man. How about that?
I love Austin, man. My home away from home.
Yeah, you were just here a couple weeks ago. I missed it. They had an ice storm. And,
I know. That kind of cut into our attendance. I'll be back, though. I'll be back probably in June.
Great, man. I can't wait to meet you. Like I said, big fan of the show. I love your delivery. The way you present all the information is real simple.
Thank you.
And it's health is supposed to be simple.
It is supposed to be simple. That's right, Brian. Thank you. You got it right. If it's complicated, they're probably lying to you. If it doesn't sound like it makes sense, or you don't understand it, they don't understand it, or they're being deceitful. It should be very, very simple. How can we help you, man? I've got about 2 minutes.
You should be able to spell the stuff that you're taking, So, look, I have several topics, Ben. I want to talk a little bit about myself. I want to talk a little bit about my son. My son's a type 1 diabetic. So in the future, when I meet you in person or next time I call on the show, we'll talk about. I'm pretty healthy. I'm 50 years old. I'm a big proponent of supplementation, vitamin, minerals, and so. But the reason I'm calling today, Ben, is I'm kind of concerned. My dad has been pretty healthy. My folks are in their early 70s, travel a lot, they're retired, pretty healthy people. I got them on a good supplement. But I'm worried about my dad taking these statin drugs for his cholesterol.
Yeah.
And I want you to speak briefly. I'm not going to keep you. I want you to speak briefly, like almost like you're talking to Donald J. My dad's name's Don. Just kind of explain in a nutshell, some natural. And I know it's a big subject, man.
It's a huge subject. I only have about 2 minutes, but we'll help a lot of people here, Brian, because statin drugs, I think at last I heard is something like 1 out of every 10 Americans are on a statin drug, some huge, ridiculous number, and they want even more people to be on a statin drug. There's so many things to say about it, but the first thing I want to tell you, as a pharmacist, as a registered pharmacist who's been studying medicine now for pushing 30 years, there is no friggin' way a prescription drug can make you healthier, period. End of story. It's a poison. It's a poison. How the heck is a poison supposed to make you healthier? What prescription drugs do is they change markers. They change test scores. In the case of statin drugs, they change a test score, a marker called cholesterol. And supposedly, and I say supposedly with a capital S, by lowering cholesterol, and not even cholesterol, by lowering LDL and raising HDL, you supposedly protect your heart. This is stupidity of the highest degree. First of all, LDL and HDL are not cholesterol, and they're carriers of cholesterol. They themselves are markers. And secondly, cholesterol is a vital, important, critical, maybe the most important and critical substance in the body for building tissue, for building, making the brain healthy, for making the nervous system healthy, for keeping the skin healthy, for keeping all of your organs healthy. I cannot tell you how unspeakably vital cholesterol is. And to take a drug that monkeys around with your body's ability to make this substance is utter stupidity. There's no words to describe how stupid this is. On top of that, if you have a cholesterol problem, you have a chemistry problem. Your cells are cranking out too much cholesterol because they're defective. There's something wrong with them. They're sick. So what do? How do you correct this? Well, number one, the most important reason why cholesterol levels rise, why cells become defective and start cranking too much of this stuff, is because they have been deceived into thinking that we are building. Remember, cholesterol is a building substance. So when you're making too much cholesterol, for some reason, cells are getting the signals they should be building. And these signals are coming, for the most part, from the hormone insulin. This is the number one reason why cholesterol levels get whacked out. Elevated insulin. And any diabetic will tell you that changes in cholesterol, increases in cholesterol production are associated with changes in blood sugar, with changes in insulin, so-called dysglycemia. This is the key link. This is the key component to elevations in cholesterol. And this is where you want to be working, doctors and patients too. Focus on blood sugar. Focus on insulin. Use more protein. I'm just flat out of time. I apologize, you guys. We'll continue this tomorrow. I'll start talking about statin drugs, and then we'll continue talking about cysteine tomorrow on the bright side. All right, I'm Pharmacist Ben. Thanks for listening, folks. Have a wonderful, awesome, beautiful day. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye.